Well, it is 10:30. We will go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone. You are in for a special treat. Thank you for joining the ESCCO for this wonderful learning opportunities. Without further ado, I will introduce to you our hostess with the mostest. That is our Kathy Meyer and Ellen Erlinger from Partnerships Make a Difference. We are here to talk about how to stay sane and continue to make learning irresistible in our many world of right now, crazy world of chaos. So thank you all so much for taking the time to be here. We know that you're going to have an exciting time today with learning. If you have not already, please make sure you add your name and title to the chat box. And if you're interested in Ashland credit, I will put the name of the person who you can email in the chat box. We are happy to provide that for you. We also welcome our other beautiful host, Emmy Beeson, the Superintendent of Tolls. We are so excited to have you. And so without further ado, I turn it over to you, ladies.
Wonderful. Thank you. We're so glad to have you all here. You know, we were talking about the awkwardness of pre-Zoom meetings, but what a great blessing that people from all over the state can be here together to share in some ideas this morning. We want to spend just a moment to make introductions and let you know who we are, and then we'll really dig into a packed hour of information that we hope will be really helpful for you. So I'm Emmy Beeson. I'm the superintendent at Tolls Career and Technical Center. This is my 11th year as a superintendent. And during that time, previously at Ridgemont Local Schools, which we're going to hear from a little bit later today, I really saw how the work of a shared vision from the top of the organization to all of the levels in the organization changed the work of students and staff members and engage people in very different ways than maybe traditional strategic plans. And so I've really committed to this work and done some work in some other districts, but this is a near and dear to my heart as it has changed my kind of trajectory in my career. And I really owe much of that to two great friends of mine, Kathy Meyer and Ellen Erlinger, who's with Partnerships Make a Difference, and they're going to introduce themselves to you this morning before we get started.
Thank you, Emmy. I'm sure people are already doing the math that you've been a superintendent for 11 years, that you must have been about 9 when you started.
That joke only worked pre-COVID when my hair wasn't gray.
So I'll add to it. Ellen and I have been retired for 20 years now. I was an administrator. I'm Kathy Meyer. I retired as a central office administrator with Worthington Schools, and Ellen was a central office administrator with Upper Arlington Schools. And both of us wore a lot of hats in the district, as many of you do in your own districts, with various school counseling and career tech and after school and all kinds of things. We were involved in a lot of professional development, but the one area that really, I think, spoke to our teacher hearts was when we got involved with service learning and project-based learning. And so 2 things changed the trajectory of our career. Was that when we retired, we've been able to do teacher training and work with schools and school districts in authentic instruction and envisioning. But we also met Emmy and the people at Ridgemont, which changed everything in the way we approach this work. And you're going to hear a little bit more about that as well.
This is going to be a historic moment when I state that I agree with absolutely everything Kathy said, and I have nothing to add at this time.
Everybody write that down. So good. So we have a lot planned for you. We're going to work really hard to try to keep on schedule so that you can hear some of the great work of people around us and people who have supported. I'm trying to share my screen here, supported this work in their own district. So let's see, can you see the Making Learning Irresistible slide? Shake heads, yes or no. Can you see my screen? Yes, awesome, thank you. So let me get to present and then we'll go through here. So you know that we are really focusing today about how do we stay sane and focused on our vision even during this craziness of COVID-19. And we want to start with what are you going to learn, or what can you hope to take away in our time together? And then we're going to really dig into some learning. So first, we want to really talk about how having a shared vision and a directional system for decision making can change how a school district it really engages with the level of student and staff engagement. And maybe hearing the term directional system is a new phrase for you, but think about mission, vision, beliefs, character traits that you hope to see in all staff and in all students. That's really it's your direction. It's the directional system of your district. And we're really focusing on the idea that that is shared by all participants inside of the organization. I'm going to talk about what high quality service learning is and what it encompasses, and why it is really a powerful strategy for students, but also for adults. This is the strategy in my career that I have found re-engages and reignites the hearts of teachers who have been struggling. And I think now is the time when we're really struggling and tired and burned out. And then some opportunity around how do we make learning virtually irresistible, because that's the struggle for us certainly right now. I just added this slide. Kathy and Ellen haven't even seen this, but an administrator sent this to me this morning when we were talking about another update that's coming to us related to COVID. And like, who are you right now? You know, maybe you don't want to say, but I think I'm like the sea turtle in the bottom right-hand corner with my eyeballs bugging out and just like, I don't know what to do right now. There's so much on our plates. And if you're feeling this kind of frustration, it's really important for us to think about how do we really get focused on what is most important to us. So I want you to just, take a moment, and I want you just to reflect pre-COVID. And I want you to think about what you heard if you're an administrator. Actually, let's do that. I can't really get out of let me do this for a second, really quick. Let's do this. If you're an administrator, can you do a thumbs up on your, the reactions at the bottom of your screen? So I'm a thumbs up. How many administrators on this call? Up, or just like traditional, yes, you could just give me a thumbs up. That's good. How many administrators on the call? Yes, some heads nodding. Awesome. Thank you. How many teachers are on this call? A couple teachers. Wonderful. Thank you. That just helps us to know a little bit about our audience that we're working with. Anybody who's not in the teacher or administrator category? Yes, we have 1, 2. Okay. Awesome. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate it. So let me get back to sharing my screen here. And I want you to think about prior to COVID, were you hearing teachers? If you're a teacher, were you feeling? If you're an administrator, were you feeling, I am stretched in a million different ways. I don't know how I'm supposed to do everything that people ask me to do. Pre-COVID, were you feeling that way? I mean, I was, all of my staff was. Every time a new initiative came down the pike, somebody would say, oh my gosh, how do you expect us to do X, Y, Z, right? And now think about during COVID, during the shutdown, whether you're in hybrid or remote or trying to see kids face to face with all of the protocols in place, how difficult it is. And maybe this screen really is not a joke. Maybe really you feel like one of these animals on this screen. So today we want to do some reflection and some reminder about our own personal visions and why we chose this work. So as we get started and we think about how districts are impacted by vision, we'd like you to spend a little bit of time, and maybe you might add some of this in the chat box, and Kathy and Ellen, maybe you're able to monitor that and share some thoughts with us. I want you to think about initially, way back whenever that was, why did you choose education? What was your hope in becoming a classroom teacher when you first got into this profession and really had no idea what you were getting into? And I can't see the chat box with my screen shared. So if anybody can share some ideas.
Okay, Christy said, fostering a love of learning that my teachers had instilled in me. Katie, helping those students who struggle the most realize their potential and create a love for learning. Samantha, I love helping and witnessing people figure things out and discover something new.
Beautiful. All of those things were about how you could support somebody else, right? How you could like have that light bulb go on, how you were going to personally receive great satisfaction by supporting others and watching them learn and grow. But that's really what the heart of teachers and administrators is. So thinking way back to that, now we're going to shift a little bit and think about some of the best days inside of your school experience. And so Ellen, can you lead us through that?
Yeah, the thinking that you've done so far was really revisiting your own original motivation as a professional. And the next question that we're going to ask you to think about has to do with some reflection on occasions that you have experienced or observed once you actually got into education. And we're asking you to think for a moment about one of the best days that you ever spent either working with kids or in your administrative role, maybe watching another teacher work with kids. But this is an occasion where in that classroom, in that teaching situation, magic was happening. And we don't want to know what the anecdote was at this point, but we want you to either in the chat or with a pencil and paper, just quickly write down 3 or 4 descriptors of what was going on in that best day. What were the kids like? What was the teacher like? But what were the conditions of teaching and learning that made that a best day? So I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to reflect and then ask to pull a few descriptors from you. Okay, so we're beginning to get a set of descriptors that are very reminiscent of the descriptors we normally get when we do this activity. There's a great deal of recognition about engagement and joy and fun, and also that the learning is authentic, that there is a great deal of passion and collaboration. And the reason that we always begin our work with educators in this way is so that we give ourselves a touchstone for what are we looking for when we begin to develop a shared vision. How can we all contribute to that? And so through this very simple activity over the years that we've been doing this work, we use this as a building block, and from there help people kind of define what the North Star is for their school or district. Thanks for engaging in that. We really appreciate it.
Wonderful. Thinking about if all of those motivators that we just listed, like these are the things that are really good on our best days with kids. What if there were things for your district and in your classrooms that could guarantee that you would have more best days, right? Not every day, right, we get that, but more best days and more magical moments with students. So as we move through the remainder of our time together, we want you to know that there will be a question and answer phase at the end. Certainly you can ask questions in chat as we go, and Kathy and Ellen will kind of try to keep track of those and interrupt me if we need to right then, or we'll wait till the end for questions. We also are really excited that this is not the 3 of us sharing some ideas, but we are bringing to you a panelist of people from the field who get to talk about their own experiences in creating shared vision. If you don't have yourself muted, if you could do that, that would be great.
Okay, you should have came to me and said, Mom, what do you want to know?
Yep, and if we can figure out who it is and mute on our side, that would be good. So a group of panelists who can share their own work from the field and how they've used a shared vision.
I was like, Diego, before I would be.
Project-based learning.
Is it like, huh? And then I'll go get it and I'll say it.
Whoever isn't muted, if you could mute yourself, that would be really helpful.
There, I think we got it.
Kathy, if
Awesome.
you can mute, if you're the host, it's the person with the iPhone. You should be able to mute them.
Okay, I think I did, but we'll see.
Awesome, thank you, thank you. So question and answers at the end, panelists coming. We want to think about exactly what you just did right now, that you're connected to your own motivator, your own mission, right? Your own sense of what a best day was. And so what if it wasn't just you? What if it wasn't just a teacher in a classroom, but it was a whole building? If it was a whole district that came together under a definition called being a values-based organization. Now, that might not be something that you hear very often in a school setting, but we really all operate by values. Like you said, things like, I want kids to be compassionate. Kids were team players. They're supportive of each other. So being a values-based organization is when we create a culture that is a shared core of values among all employees. And that's so different. We're going to talk about this in a little bit, but that's so different than maybe a strategic plan created by a superintendent and the board. This is shared among all employees in the school district. And how do we go about making sure that everybody's voice is part of this shared vision of what we want our school to be? And then we know from our own personal experiences in our own school districts and also in consulting and Kathy and Ellen working with schools all over the state of Ohio and in other states as well, that when we ask people about their best days, when we ask people about the profile of a graduate, when we ask people about the profile of an engaged learner, almost everybody comes up with the same kinds of things about wanting kids to be engaged in their work. They want them to have authentic learning experiences. They want kids to have some kind of community and school engagement. They want to impact their social emotional learning. And service learning is a strategy that does that. Service learning is an authentic instructional strategy that connects students with real people out in the real world to meet our curriculum standards, to meet social emotional learning in our school without adding another thing to do. We just do it right inside the curriculum. It creates school and community engagement and really empowers students. And one thing that we don't have up here that I can testify as an administrator is that it also really empowers staff members. It really empowers people to feel connected to their core. So doing the work of real people and making a difference. In a values-based organization, you see long-term vision for a district that doesn't change when leaders change, because people know what the values are and they stick with that regardless of what is coming from the state level, regardless of what is coming from a different leader's kind of agenda. We know what the values are. They incorporate values into their recruiting process and try and go after people who can really support the goals and mission of the district and inspire employees, not just the carrot and the stick, but inspire employees based on, we know what the mission of our district is, and so we're all moving forward in this same direction. That's what it would look like to be in a district with who is a values-based organization. And then, you know, service learning, I've seen amazing examples of service learning from first graders who created business projects to sell Christmas ornaments and then tracked which stores sold the most and graphed them for their math standards, like crazy things that we would say first graders can't do. But not only did they do it and they learned math, they also raised money to help kids in foster care at Christmas time. Talk about authentic learning. So those are kind of the strategies that we're bringing together right now. I would ask maybe the question about people's past experience when an administrator says, we're going to work on a mission statement. We're going to work on a vision experience, a vision statement. We're going to bring a strategic plan together. And I love this little cartoon here. I'll just give you a second to look at that. And isn't that really the case in a lot of districts? Now, maybe not the districts we're talking to, and I hope not, man, I hope not. But not just districts, even business organizations. Often we find that the mission or the vision is something we do to create. Checkbox, the mission is done, it's on a plaque on a wall, it's in a binder, it's on our letterhead, but it doesn't really change how we make decisions or how we operate. So if you think about traditional organizational challenges, stakeholders, maybe groups of stakeholders come together to work on a strategic plan, sampling of teachers, maybe the board, maybe the superintendent. Many times we don't consider our classified staff in this work to create a vision. So not everybody owns it, and not everybody even knows about it, and not everybody does it. So there are some real challenges around traditional ways of finding a vision for a district. And then you add a pandemic on top of it. Think about all of the things we were trying to do before that we don't even, I mean, honestly, we don't even know how to do the things we've known how to do for 40 years. Like, we're all learning again. And this could be a time when we just say, you know what, we just have to get through the year. We just have to somehow make it. Or this really could be a time where we say, in crisis, we dig into what we believe, we dig into our values, and we figure out how to reframe and rethink this as an opportunity to engage with students in ways that we have never engaged with them before. And so we're going to spend some time talking to our panelists from a variety of different school districts who are at different places in this journey, and really hear from their own personal experiences around what it means to have a shared vision, what it means to incorporate that into the classroom at all levels. And so first, before we introduce our guests, we want to talk about this continuum of vision. And really, first we have to make the caveat, which is if you are aware of your vision. And maybe you're having some self-reflection right now where you say, you know what, I'm not sure what my district's vision is. We do a lot of things that are good for kids. We're not diminishing that at all. But we get a new principal, we do something else. The state has another initiative, we focus on that. We're driven solely by our report card, like a variety of things where you might say, I'm not really sure what sets my district apart from other districts. I'm not sure why my district is different. We kind of just do what everybody is doing in the state of Ohio. So you could be at that place. And really, if you're there, it's actually a great place to be, because you just realized we're at this benchmark, like this is a catalyst, right? We could have a much more impactful scenario if we focus our energies on what our vision is. If you are aware of your vision and your district has done some of that work, you're somewhere in this continuum. You're either envisioning, you are trying to uncover the mission and vision of your district, or you're building capacity. You've done the work of defining it in a shared capacity. Everybody is in on this definition. How do we build capacity? How do we support teachers? How do we change how administrators make decisions? That's this supporting and building section. And then achieving, like, we've got to do it. We've got to put these strategies in action and then build them and grow them and tweak them. And then the last phase that is like this continuing over and over again is sustaining the vision. How do we keep it going even when challenges happen? How do we sustain the vision even when COVID-19 comes, into our classrooms? How do we sustain the vision when the superintendent changes? How do we sustain the vision when the levy fails? Those are the pieces in this continuum where we find ourselves. And we are so excited to bring to you today Keith Pomeroy at Upper Arlington, who is the Chief Academic Officer there, Jason Fine, who is the principal at Jones Middle School at Upper Arlington, Sally Henrick, who's the Superintendent of Ridgemont Local Schools, Jeff Ferguson, the Superintendent of Tallmadge City Schools, and Shelley Monachino, who is the Director of Teaching and Learning at Tallmadge City Schools. So I think what I want to do is quit sharing my screen, and we can spread out and see people's faces better as we talk to each other and really learn from the people in the field who are doing this work. And so I gotta find Jeff. All right, Jeff Ferguson, he's the superintendent at Tallmadge City Schools. Jeff, we want to start with you. We're looking at this continuum of where we are, and really your district has been in envisioning and building capacity like gangbusters over the last couple of years. And so since the envisioning work and transformation that has taken place at Tallmadge City Schools is the most recent of our panelists today, could you talk to us about how you knew that Tallmadge was in need of going through an envisioning process? And like, what was the catalyst for that change that we need to engage in this work?
Well, I think you said something earlier, Emmy, that there were a lot of good things going on individually, pockets that were, by individual choices where we were seeing successes individually in the classroom. Service learning has been an important piece to us. I don't know that we ingrained it structurally and as you cited, which we've done now, but when we look at, if you know anything about Tallmadge, it's a very small town, 14 miles square. Every student we educate comes from within the 14. And but at the center of that town is a monument to service. So there is a core value in this community that is service. And so the partnerships that we had going individually, they were just dying to, outside groups excited to get involved with our kids. And we had a lot of pockets going on, but I don't think we had taken the time to step back and systemically think about how we could integrate it across the curriculum, kind of that work smarter, not harder. And so I feel like, that was probably the first step, was the recognition of where we are and what were we doing really well and what were we probably not doing quite as well.
I think that's so powerful, that the phrase, making it systemic. You saw these really great practices happening in pockets, but it took this shared vision for the district to just make it part of how we do business. So that's a great example of seeing that need for change. We talked a little bit earlier that there's a huge difference between districts who simply do a strategic plan, where maybe they only work with certain groups of stakeholders. But what you did at Tallmadge was very different, where you brought voice to really all of the groups inside of your district in order to come up with your shared vision. Can you talk about what that process was like in order to discover your shared vision?
Yeah, just a couple things. And if Shelley Monachino, she's here as well, she might chime in. I think, first of all, I would say it's hard work and it's messy work, but it's like anything else you've ever tackled that is really, something you value, I think, and something that you get engaged in. It takes time. And I think, people say all the time, real change change is hard, real change is real hard. Well, this, for a lot of people, some people naturally lend themselves to service learning and see how easily that they were already doing it, and now they're getting reinforced that, and then for some people it's totally new. So I think but to put people in a room and have people have honest conversations with one another. And some of the most powerful conversations we had involved parents, students, business owners, PTAs. I mean, you take college campuses, people that are hiring our kids. We had the military involved. We had some conversations that, again, like I said, some of them were messy, but I feel like that process got us to so much of a better place by doing that.
Yeah, I mean, being a part of some of those conversations, there were some tears in some of those. And then later, those people are your strongest advocates for some of the change that you've seen in your district. So that is really exciting. I think also, Jeff, what would you say, maybe a year and a half, maybe 2 years of work, 3 year, what do you think, Shelley? 3 years of really digging in to define your vision. I mean, it was not a short process. How long would you say in the district to really get a vision that everybody could wrap their arms around?
I think it took us approximately about 2.5 years, because we started, and what we did a little bit differently is we actually started with our K-8 campus first, which kind of working with your high school and working down, but we felt it was important to start with our youngest citizens and move up with them. So we created a directional system with our K-8 campus. Then we worked with our high school campus, and then we brought them all together to create a Tallmadge directional system, which has everybody's voice in it. And it's something that is posted in the classrooms, K-12. It's something that the teachers use when they're thinking about what they're going to teach and how they're going to teach it. We use it from everything from our hiring process to every decision that we make with it. So it was 3 years of something that's well worth it, 2.5, 3 years.
That's so awesome. Shelley skipped forward to one of my next questions. And so I'm gonna go right there, Shelley. That's so good. People might not be familiar with the phrase directional decision-making. We hear the phrase data-driven decision-making all the time, and directional decision-making does not take away from that phrase. We should still be using data, right? That's the bedrock for our decision-making. But directional decision-making says, I know what my vision is, I know what my mission is, I know what we're going after, I know what we want to give to students, I know what we want to give to staff, and we are going to figure out how to do that regardless of the circumstances that come to us. And so, Shelley, you started talking about how teachers, administrators are using this 2.5 years of really hard work. But now it isn't just the plaque on the wall. It is something people are using to make decisions. So can you talk about maybe an example or share administratively how you have used that to think differently, to make different decisions inside of your district than prior to having a directional system?
Sure. So for one of the things is like how Jeff had mentioned that, we had teachers doing great things in pockets. And one of the things that we have on our directional system is our instructional strategies. And we have 5 strategies that are very important to us as teachers. And the top one being problem-based and service-based learning. So one of the decisions that we've created as a district is, for the last, working with Kathy and Ellen for the last 3 years also, has our main focus for our professional development has been in service-based learning with all our teachers. And we find that very important. When any new teachers that come on, they have to go through the training. So we're all constantly going through it. And again, we started that with our K-8 campus. It just seemed like it tended to mesh with itself better. And now we've got a group of high school teachers that are involved in it, that Kathy and Ellen are working with, and that's spreading out. And it's very exciting to hear in the high school during his staff meetings that they come out and they share about all their problem-based and service-based learning lessons that they're doing. And last year we created a service-based learning steering committee, which is K-12 teachers, with administrators, and that just constantly talks about what our plans are for our school. And you'd ask, like, prior to that, as Jeff said, it was just all over the place. Now we have it more conclusive to all our different schools and teachers. And as I mentioned before, with our hiring practices, this is something that we ask for every applicant. We have our directional system in front of us when we're doing our interviews, and we ask them questions to see if they believe what our guiding principles are, what our community believes, what our character traits are. And Jeff and I had an interview, and we were going through our directional system with this young gentleman who made it all the way to the third round. And we were really pushing him on our directional system and on what our beliefs are. And he looked at us and said, you know what? I don't think this is the district for me. And we were like, okay, thank you. You'll find a district that is for you, and you'll be successful, but this is what we're looking at. So it is something that, and to your point, Emmy, it's something that when Jeff and I are gone in Tallmadge, we hope that our directional system and that our vision and our mission just stays with our buildings forever.
Absolutely. So embedded with your Board of Education and so embedded in your buildings that people will say, this is who we are, regardless of who the leaders are. I cannot tell you how happy that makes me, what you were just sharing, because like these are the systems that you just talked about. Recruitment and induction is now changed because of having a directional system. How you bring people on and then make sure that they have the same PD as everybody else, because this is our expectation, is changed. A lot of times, I know none of us on this call are guilty, but a lot of times in education, we might this is our PD theme for the year, and then we move to something else. But because you have your directional system, that these are the things we're focusing on, and you keep coming back to that and building it and strengthening that. I mean, fantastic examples of how a district can get a laser-like focus into the things of making, supporting kids if they really know what their direction is, as opposed to being tossed about by outside forces. So wow, thank you so much for sharing.
And then if I could add also,
Sure.
with this directional system, this is also, we've started our own business advisory committee. And with our business advisory committee, we've taken what our vision and our mission is in our directional system. And when Jeff leads those meetings, that is also embedded with that. And from our directional system, we created our portrait of a graduate, as Kathy and Ellen said about the North Star. So this is like our roadmap to our portrait of a graduate, which is the North Star, and how we want and what we want from all our kids. When they
Beautifully
graduate.
said. Beautifully said. The roadmap to the end game, right, to the North Star. That's so good, so good. Well, we're gonna switch a little bit here, and we're gonna move kind of into this place in the continuum that is about achieving the vision, right, where we're really implementing this work. And Keith Pomeroy, okay, I see you. All right. Your district has probably been engaged in service learning as a strategy to support your district's vision probably for the longest amount of time of our panelists that are on with us today. Can you share some examples of the professional development with Kathy and Ellen that either help to create or to revisit or to affirm the vision? And what were the results with your staff? What did you see with teachers and principals?
Okay, so a couple of thoughts. I'm getting reverb here. Did anybody? Okay, there it is. For us, we have been engaged as a district in service learning for a long time, but I feel like the conversation that I heard earlier about pockets of great activities is a really good comparison. And I think Mr. Fine will hop in at some point and talk about the service learning that he's seen in the district. I think really in working as part of our strategic plan, we laid out a plan to generate a profile of an engaged learner. And working with Kathy and Ellen, what we really pushed for is, what does it look like to build that out from all aspects of the district? How do we get feedback from all of our staff in order to try and build that profile of an engaged learner, and to look at exactly what we were doing now? you started with looking at what are your best days, what are the things that really feed you, and we took our professional development days last year to create time for all of our buildings to work together to think about what that meant to them as a staff. That's something Kathy and Ellen really pushed on, is there's a cohesiveness to being with your staff. So what does that mean to be with your staff first, and then as a collective district together? So if the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, I think that we heard much further into 1,000 miles from Tallmadge. We are early in that process. There's this thing that happened last spring called COVID that kind of got in our way a little bit. But we've gathered that collection of all that information from across the district in buildings. And I think, Jason, I kind of want you to hop in, because I got to see what was happening with all the staffs as they were doing this work. And oftentimes those professional development days can feel like, okay, here we go again. All these sessions around all these different things. But when you have people focus on what is it that they're passionate about? Why did they get into this? And what does that mean for the type of learner we want to create long-term? I think it built a lot of energy for us. And I guess, Jason, I'd love to hear as a principal what you felt about that.
Absolutely. That was my follow-up question. So good job.
Perfect. Yeah, no, anytime you have an opportunity to work with Kathy or Ellen, we fully recommend. And luckily they came from, we've got a lot of experience with them working in Upper Arlington. So our staff loves when they're in the room. It's an opportunity to hear from two legends, and they don't have to hear from myself. But we had a renewed sense of energy that came from that. And we were worried about it. We were worried about the things that we're hearing in Upper Arlington. Some great things are happening, but the plate is just too full, and there's too much going on. And we worried that day, I think it was in November, how will the staff respond? Because they'd been beaten down in some other areas. And it just gave us that reset and that recharge we were looking for. And we've had some nice, and COVID did hit, but luckily we're in a building and in a district that has done this for a long time. These are not things we have to project onto our amazing staff members. They believe it, they live it, they're lifelong learners in the service learning aspect. And they've gone with the flow, and we've done some things to adjust to the COVID cutoff. But I'm thankful that the boost that Kathy and Ellen was able to work with us through that staff has been able to carry over as recently as this week.
So I would say too, Emmy, our follow-up now is really, when you look at it, is we actually will bring, there's a large committee in the district that is going to take all the information that's been gathered through those PD sessions, and then we're going to build it into that profile of an engaged learner. So we are going to, when we meet with that committee, next, they're going to have 3 different prototypes gathered from all the different things that they built last year, all those different touch points that they created. And then from that committee will make adjustments to what they think needs to be there. And then that will build toward our directional system. And the hope is to be where Tallmadge is, then you're identifying really, this is the type of learner we want to create. If this is the type of learner we're looking, and these are the types of opportunities that we're trying to create, what are the instructional strategies that matter?
Yes.
And then how does that impact all aspects of what we're doing? So, our district believes in creating uniquely accomplished learners. And this will define what we mean by uniquely accomplished, right? So I do feel a little guilty because Jason is showing off with his, logos behind him. UA is all about the branding, and he upped the branding today. So, this will define that out, and then we'll get to that directional system. So for us, it was significant. And I can't say enough. And I'll say this is my 6th year in the district. And Upper Arlington has been a very site-based location. So when you talk about pockets of things, you have really great things happening. But what's happening at Jones may be very different than what's happening at Hastings or Tremont or Wickliffe or Windermere. What this does is allow us to gather that within those staffs, right? And build that synergy from the staff to the district level. And then it allows us to kind of create that overall vision. And we talked a lot about that. And I think it's important. I had to listen a lot first. And Kathy and Ellen might have gotten tired of me listening to staff and listening to them about, okay, what do we need to do to get there? But it seemed like the right time last year to really then take that feedback from all of our staffs. And then we believe it has the potential to put us exactly where Tallmadge is. We're behind where Tallmadge is, but we hope to get there, Tallmadge. We're coming for you.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you are absolutely on the right path. And there's a couple really powerful statements that you guys made that I just want to like highlight those. You know, you talked about understanding the passion of your teachers, understanding the passion of your staff. And then Jason, I'm probably not saying it exactly like you, but basically, you know, when you were talking about COVID hitting and like, we don't have to talk people into this.
Right.
This is not a have to.
Right.
Because their passion was uncovered. This is a we want to,
Right.
We get to. This is teachers coming to administrators saying, help me figure out how to teach like this. And that is a totally different game than the district has decided this is the correct professional development strategy, now do it. And so that's a huge paradigm shift and a huge, I don't have a better word, a huge blessing for teachers to feel like that their voice was heard and they are being empowered versus pushed on. And then there's a really, really powerful piece in what you just shared, Keith, and when you're talking about collecting the passion and voice of all of your buildings, when you then put that in writing and you share it back out, people get to hear their voice, their heart, their thoughts reflected back to them. And then there's this buy-in because people were listening to me. People heard what we said, and people are invested in the passion that we feel at the classroom level. I know that we're being supported. There's a huge like paradigm shift in that. And I think, you know, talking about where Tallmadge is and saying that, you know, Jeff uses that at the beginning of meetings when he talks to business people. It's in classrooms. They use it at the beginning of staff meetings. They use it at the beginning of teacher meetings. It's part of their recruitment and induction. Everybody's talking the same talk all the time, so that there's this huge, like, buy-in's not even the word anymore. This is just who we are. This is what we do here. And the example of a teacher saying, well, a prospective teacher saying, I don't know that I really fit in here. Great. Go find a job somewhere else. We love you. You'll be successful somewhere else, but this isn't the place for you because we know what we believe and we're going after. So really, really powerful messaging there. Sally, we're gonna switch and we're gonna follow up with you because Tallmadge did this work, you know, with Jeff and Shelley, and Upper Arlington has been like doing service learning for a long time. It's part of their vision, but they're working on making it this you know, overarching directional system and umbrella. But you have lived through a district who did that work. The superintendent left, and then the vision had to be sustained. That the board bought the vision and they wanted to sustain it. So talk about how having that vision and directional system allowed things to be sustained. How is that different from your other experiences? Share what's happening at Ridgemont now. Oh, you're on mute.
First of all, everybody's inspired me tremendously because you just put a shot. It's like a shot of an IV in my arm, just listening to everyone speak. And amen to all of you, because I think I feel a lot of the same things. Moving from, you have to understand, I was principal of curriculum instruction here first. I followed Emmy, and I thought, oh my gosh, what big shoes to fill. But I don't think that we didn't skip a beat when I moved into here, to be honest with you. You know, we have a directional system and I use it just like all of you. It's what, you know, I've been with that teacher that we sat and said, hey, you know, here's what we believe in. We do service learning, co-teaching, differentiation. Those are a part of our instructional strategies, and technology integration was one of them too. And so moving into the building, this is my third year as superintendent here, a brand new superintendent as I moved into this. But this building, I say, often moves faster than I do because it's what's ingrained in people. They understand, and we talk about the beliefs, our core beliefs, and it's not, I've heard a lot of different things, and this is what we believe in. It's not something, it's just something that's there that we understand. We took a look back yesterday, as a matter of fact, and we were talking about COVID. And I don't think, and Emmy mentioned a little bit before, I don't know if we would have survived COVID, and we're not done with COVID yet, but if we would have survived on March 13th, walking out that door, when we walked out the door to go home, we looked at our directional system and our beliefs, and our teachers didn't skip a beat. They worked with one another because they're so used to working with one another and sharing with one another. And we believe in that freedom to grow and fail, that they started collaborating. We have common planning periods where they collaborate anyway, but without that, they collaborated by themselves, and just really, we talk about how we do business, and our vision is designing the future. When you think about COVID, it actually allowed us to continue designing the future, because we are already, technology, that was a piece of it as a tool. And it allowed us to do those things that we did in the classroom, and they just started doing those using technology and finding different ways to do that. And so it was a pretty smooth, seamless move into things like that. And so we threw Chromebooks home with kids right away. Our littles, we already had them home with the older kids. And so what happened during that time, which is, you look at our directional system, those things that were happening in the building because of our directional system just transferred right into, moving through COVID. And it's still that way too. Our teachers a lot of times will say, because they're used to that, we provide student voice. Our teachers also have that passion for voice too. And so a lot of times I have to take a step back and say, okay, what are you telling me? Let's move forward. Let's look at our directional system. So, from the hiring process, when they're coming in the door, that's something that we use this is how we do business. When I walked in the door, superintendent, talking about our beliefs, those are things that we talk about all the time. It's just kind of become ingrained in what we do, and it is how we do business. I mean, it hangs on our wall, but when you really think about it, it's it's not really, it's hanging there, but it's really, I look at our beliefs especially because that's what really inspires that vision. Those are things that we sit down and we took a look at those beliefs. Where were we at before COVID? Where are we at now? How do we continue? The sustainability is difficult some days just because sustaining is hard, but with a directional system and you look at everything that comes at you, this is what's really at the heart of it: engaging students, making that learning irresistible. And our teachers are finding ways to do that. It might not be like we're used to because we're very hands-on here, a lot of our service learning projects and things like that, but finding that groove and continuing to do those pieces has been, having a directional system has been very critical in those pieces.
That is so good. I want to pull a couple of those points. Because of a directional system, the district moves faster than I do. That's one of the phrases she used. People know where they're going. They know what the direction is. They don't really need somebody to tell them, okay, now we do this, now we do this. They know where they're supposed to go. And then I loved this line because, our key phrase here was staying sane in a COVID world, right? Like, how do you be focused on your vision? You said that people just transferred their beliefs and instructional practices into a virtual world. We know what we do. We know what we believe. We know what our kids are supposed to be after. We still have to do it in a virtual world. We have to find a way to do it in a virtual world. And so that is a great transition to the next question for Kathy and Ellen. We're getting close to the end of our time, and I'd like you to talk about how did you transition in your support of these districts in this virtual world? COVID hit, and you had to learn how to support these districts differently. How did you do that?
Okay, so when all this hit, about a week later, sunk into us that everything we had planned to do with schools and school districts and different groups of teachers through the summer and into the school year was not going to happen. the way we had planned it. And so, you know, all of you are young and you're dealing with this pandemic and having to do things virtually. We're not young anymore. And so we had to learn a whole new way of approaching how we do coaching, how we do training, how we work with schools to do envisioning. And so this summer we piloted a course on Zoom, Making Learning Irresistible, virtually irresistible. And over Zoom and Google Classroom, we had to learn all that from scratch, which was fun actually, but a lot of work. And so we are very respectful of everything that you're going through with this. But we expected, we would have been happy if we'd have had 20 people sign up for it just to try it. We had 54 participants in that summer course, which shocked us. And one of the things, you know, our point is we always start, whenever we're working with teachers, we start with vision, and we always do best days and what we call kid figures. And so the point isn't really to do service learning. The point is just as you identified things that were part of your best days, what made Jason's teachers, I've never seen a group more excited and engaged than when they were doing that last year. It was so much fun to watch. But when you start with, say, a profile of an engaged learner or a graduate, sometimes people are looking at what do we want kids to have? What don't they have that we want them to have? When you talked about best days, you're going back and you're thinking about the best in kids. What was happening when real deep learning was taking place? And so we start there and build an instructional strategy around that.
Awesome.
Our philosophy was that you could still live out your vision, what was most important, even if we were remote.
Oh, that's the best. Like that's the caption, right? Like you can live out your vision, you can follow the direction for your district, even if you are in remote learning, even if the levy fails, even if fill in the blank. And that's really the heart and the purpose, you know, that we're trying to demonstrate that you can adjust and you can pivot if you know what your North Star is. And so
Yes.
we're getting close to the end of time. We do want to allow, if there's a question that hasn't been answered, we certainly want to allow for that. I'm kind of watching the chats to see if any questions pop up. Mary Jane.
I would like to share something because a number of you are on here that helped with this. And I think one of my best days was 3 years ago when Emmy and Kathy and Ellen were working with us in our compact. And we were having sort of a showcase of the work of the year. We had had a lot of grant money come from ODE for a project, and I hired the three of them to work with us. And after this big presentation took place, I arranged for Emmy to work with our 6 superintendents and curriculum directors. And so she got more into the weeds with those folks. And so, Jeff, one of my best days was when you called me and said to me, I want to do that. I want to change our school district, and I want those people to help me. And it's not every day in somebody's career that you have the experience of a superintendent really believing in a different way to deliver the goods. And so thank you, Jeff, and thank you, Shelley, and thank you, Emmy and Kathy, for that work that really went into affecting the entire Tallmadge School District. as well as some other things in some of our other districts. But it was in that school district that they valued the overarching goal of what you all have been talking about. So Jeff, Shelley, thank you very much.
That is perfect. We could not have tied a better bow on the end of our time together than that statement. That was awesome. Thank you so much. You know, I guess we really want you to know that our heart is to support shared visions in districts that really empower everybody at every level of the organization. And if anything that we have said today captures your interest and inspires you, we're offering to, you know, be supportive to you. Kathy and Ellen are going to put an email in the chat box that if you want to reach out, we're certainly here to continue any kind of conversation. I believe the exit survey exit ticket is already in the chat box, and we desperately would love your feedback, right, for the ESC as they continue to figure out ways to support their districts, and so that we can figure out the best way to continue supporting you as well. And beyond that, so Kathy and Ellen, can you get that email address in the chat?
It is.
It's at
It
the
is.
beginning.
Yeah.
Oh, it's at the beginning. So you guess you have to scroll up if you are looking for that. But I cannot thank you enough for giving us some of your time. It's crazy world and busy, and so your time is greatly appreciated. And thank you to our panelists. I love hearing your stories today.
Cherie, did you want to say anything before we leave?
Just thank you so much to everyone for joining. Thank you, Emmy, for facilitating such an awesome conversation. You all are in great hands with Kathy and Ellen. If you want more support around the topic of service learning, please reach out to them or reach out to the ESC. We're happy to connect you. We have other opportunities that we're planning and hope to put in front of you. So just thank you all for taking the time to be here. We're excited to support this work. Thank you for that wonderful testimony, Mary Jane, and for our panel. You all did an excellent job. We hope you continue this work and also join us for other PDs. We have some great work ahead and we would love to see you. So thank you for taking the time. Stay sane, stay safe, and we'll Zoom with you soon.
Yes.
Thank you too, Cherie.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.